You can draw people into the labor force by running the labor force a little bit hot. We saw it in the 1980s through the 2000s when wage growth was pretty strong. So there's been a precedent out of it. And if you look at the number of unemployed plus the number of people who are out of the labor force, but including people who are in school or who are disabled, actually there's a lot of slack left in the labor market. So that does suggest we should be able to draw some of these people into the workforce. I think what we would need to see to do that is higher wages, though. And I'm reminded of something that Neil Kashkari said at one point. He said, if you're a business complaining about not being able to find workers and you're not raising wages, you're just whining. And I think that's probably true. There's been a real reticence to raise wages. A lot of companies have told me, you know, we could raise wages, but then everybody else would do it. So what's the point? So it's a bit of a collective action problem. But I do think that there is some solution to this, and that comes in the form of higher wages.
Do the workers who might be lured back by higher wages necessarily, because they've been out of the workforce, maybe voluntarily, maybe not, do they have the skills that the employers want?
Yeah, so that's a question, and it really would depend on the sector. I think that there is a significant skills mismatch, and a number of regional Fed presidents are looking into how to fix that. So the Philadelphia Fed, the Dallas Fed, they're trying to implement kind of local programs as a test pilot to be rolled out nationwide to figure out how to retool and reskill people. The problem with that is it's fine for a central bank to look into it, but in terms of politicians actually adopting these policies, they're slow burners. They don't work right away. They don't work within an election cycle, and so no one's really incentivized to do it.
Megan, a radical solution, and what's interesting is I hear more of this from a lot of this from the conservative side. I think because they want to give the policies of the Trump administration a chance to run here, is to let it run. And that's, I hear this more and more, especially from conservative economists. Let the unemployment rate fall. Don't worry about inflation. Stop hiking the funds rate. Let's see if we can get wages up and for lack of a better term, wages up and people off the couch. What do you think of that idea?
Well, and this was Janet Yellen's plan that she announced. You know, if we run the economy a little bit hot, we might get some people joining the workforce. And that worked for a couple of months. It seems to have petered out more recently, as you point out. Jay Powell, now the chairman of the Fed, has also supported this idea. And Alan Kruger, your guest previously, supported that idea in Jackson Hole. He said that's a way to break, you know, certain big companies' bargaining power when it comes to wages. I want to just run the economy hot.
I'm sorry, Meg, I want to cut you off before we lose time here, because what we're talking about here is a radical idea that the Fed would sort of ignore the incipient or the theoretical inflation concerns and just let it go. See how far we can drive down that unemployment rate and see if there's a response. And by the way, for the record, I looked back 50 years. There is no response ever of the participation rate to the unemployment rate. What there are vast demographic trends of women coming back into the workforce, enough women deciding they're working, and so some of them leaving the workforce. There are big trends, but this would be a radical experiment. And Megan, I think you're signing on for it, right?
Yeah, I mean, you said it right, the theoretical inflation, and I think there are a bunch of structural factors, including demographics, the gig economy, the fact that we consume so many services, which are low-wage, low-hour sectors, that mean that we're not really facing a late cycle surge in inflation, so we don't need to worry about it quite as much as we have in the past when we've been in the late stage of the business cycle. So I think that it's worth trying to run the economy a little bit hot, see how many people we can get into the workforce without really having to worry about a surge in inflation.